As we have touched on before, it is important in life to listen. Some of our greatest experiences are in the moment. Others are vicariously experienced through the lens of another. I'd like to tell you the brief tale of one such experience and its specific importance to me, and hopefully you can gain something worthwhile from this little tale of mine. There was once a man I came to call my closest friend, who was a beacon for those in his life. He would seemingly bring about equal measures of hope and despair, depending on the day. Being a maelstrom of unpredictability, he had an uncanny knack for reading the room and carrying out the feelings of others before they themselves were aware. Seemingly uncontrollable in temperament, I nevertheless found great companionship with the man. And the way he lived his life has left a very strong impression on me to this day. One time, I was awakened to the sound of hearty laughter. Within moments of his arrival, after being away for a long period of time, we found him draped in a cloak, donning a monocle, and ordering us around on a treasure hunt. After some vivacious deliberation and suspiciously coordinated encouragement, whenever we would request that he relent, we reached our destination to find a gift suited to each person with a note, reminding us each of our greatest memories together and the lessons buried within. At the time, I saw a tear in his eye. Only years later can I fully appreciate how much this event meant for myself and my old friend. Another time, he arrived in the middle of the night, clutching his chest and barging into our home after being chased by a scorned lover. He proceeded to vomit and collapse in our bathroom for the night. He walked in the next morning with a smear of vomit running across his cheek and blood down his thigh from a wound he failed to notify us of the night before. I will never forget, with a tilt of the head and a smile that radiated past my prior annoyances, he told me, "Hey, stud, why the long face?" His look seemed to penetrate the overwhelming and pointless sacrifices I had been building up for some time. I separated from my girlfriend the next week as a sudden swelling of suppressed emotions flooded to the surface. I packed up my things and left, never looking back. I still feel, to this day, I might have ignored obvious signs and suffered for years to come if I didn't look at his idiotic face. Still another time, I found myself in an unfortunate situation of trying to console a family I understood would never see eye to eye. A tension filled the air that I feared would never lift. Years of baggage, failed reconciliations, and ignoring compounding problems culminated into the perfect storm. It was not the first time this situation occurred, and through my palpable fear that nothing I could say or do could fix this broken family, he emerged to confront his own family on my behalf. He stood silent for a minute. The floorboards creaked as the rest of us shuffled in surprise, but also for a more important reason. This man embodied hope for these unfortunate folk. He stood as a testament to whatever faith they still held deep in the withered husks they used to call their hearts. And as they stood silent, plastered faces with broken smiles and nervous laughter, I witnessed my friend disintegrate before my eyes. Pure malevolence flew freely from his mouth. Tears streamed down his eyes as he stood screaming at the rest of them, highlighting all their faults, all their mistakes, as if divine punishment needed to be dealt at this very moment, and the death of their martyr was finally at hand. A few days after this incident, I agreed to go hiking out in the woods with him late at night. We have gone several times before, and in these moments, there were times where I could see his impervious mask slip. He had a calm demeanor, and we were recounting bygone memories and plans for the future, an inkling to a future event I, at the time, was completely oblivious to. The light faded, and we were guided by nothing more than our instincts through the labyrinth of trees and fluttering wings of crickets symphonizing our fateful encounter. Oftentimes we would get lost and end up staying the night camping in the middle of nowhere until the sun beckoned us home. I valued these nights more than anything in my entire life. A particular conversation was struck, one I never thought I would have with him, one I thought was impossible to take place in reality. He was envious of me, of my family, of my relationships, of my occupation, of everything. As tumultuous and chaotic my life had been, as unstable and ultimately lonely and wasteful it had been, this dearest friend I admired more than anyone else envied me. At the time, I was at a complete loss for words. Deep down, I could sympathize with what I just witnessed happen a few days prior. But in my heart, I refused to believe this could happen, and that things would turn around eventually. They didn't mend. In fact, I was simply too late to realize the proverbial branch had snapped. Stopping to walk for a moment, I asked if he was okay, and he grabbed my hand, placed a note into it, and simply said, "Take care of yourself," before running away into the night. I feebly attempted to follow suit, but it was impossible to see, and I ran into a tree in my desperation, losing my orientation and my resolve in the process. He was gone. I was alone in the middle of the forest, alone in my life with no other friend to rely on, and I finally took to heart what must have been nothing more than a daily occurrence for him. Every interaction we had, every moment I chastised him, every spurned response and failure to reciprocate the endless kindness that he bestowed upon me was ingrained in my mind. Despite regularly probing his family and friends, asking if there was any sign of him, even waiting in familiar places with the hope that our time need not end here, I never saw him again. Relationships in life are the most important thing to foster. Every interaction you have with others should be meaningful in some way. It is crucial to be present and engaged with those you care about, lest not only may they part ways with you because of neglect, but also the time you spend together is that much more valuable for having put in the extra effort. I learned this lesson the hard way, as I sometimes fear we all have to do in order for the message to meaningfully sink in. Wealth, prestige, scholarship, social acceptance, and even love pale in comparison to the friends you carry and the relationships with them that you foster. Nothing in life is guaranteed, but the memories which linger on in your heart past the trials we all endure together. A simple offering to help, to ask how my old friend is, to check on them and not take their well-being for granted, could have provided a bountiful friendship to this very day, rather than the mere echo of what once was. So too should we all feel and strive to achieve, in order that words do not go unsaid and relationships remain whole. Vulnerability, coupled with those who have earned the right to witness it, and foster a hearty stewardship in its keeping, are the foundation of empires. the source of bountiful bearings and a resource more vital than the purest gold. Those you care about will never be able to know the extent to which you care without adamant and steady reminders. In addition, self-reliance is key to not only stability, but also for a more meaningful interaction between kin, in that each member of a group will feel challenged, yet inspired to supersede and bond with those they perceive to be valuable people. When I mention self-reliance, this goes beyond homesteading or being monetarily stable. It also includes your mental faculties and spiritual matters, lest the crude aspects pour out for all to see. Perhaps my friend merely had no one else to turn to in this example. How grateful I would be to lend a hand at that time to such a dear comrade, if I were only able to. I stumbled endlessly in a maze, at times solely relying on this friend due to my perception that I was unable to shine as brilliantly as he had. Little did I know that he and others received a deeper light within me that would eclipse everything I had found insurmountable at the time. To this day, I have a long way to go, and so does our wider family in awakening to our ancestral talents for love, perseverance, reliability, and courage. Within the latent spirit lies the king and the queen, the knight and the druid, the sage and the scholar, the explorer and the housecarl. All paths and more that need redefining in our modern era, and furthermore a deep revival and ascendance away from the gray everyman we have been conditioned to become. Be present. Tackle each and every day as if it was your last. For one day we may no longer last. As always, stay strong and remain hopeful.